Hello and welcome to Good or Bad. It's still October, so that means more Halloween. Previously on Halloween, adverts tried to murder people, but that's not really relevant here, so let's just forget about that for now. Michael Myers murdered a lot of people and finally had Laurie Strode, his sister, dead to rights. Until Sam Loomis, his doctor, stopped him by blowing them both up. No way anyone could possibly survive that. Except they both did. We get a little line about how Michael's doctor almost burnt them both to death. And all the movie does is add a few burn scars to both Myers and Loomis. Oh, and they give Loomis a bad leg as well. Because as we all know, mass amounts of fire and an explosion, they're not that dangerous. Anyone could survive that. I mean, look at him, it's like burning your finger on a candle. That's nothing. Halloween 4, The Return of Michael Myers. Released in 1988, a whole 10 years after the original movie. This film was directed by Dwight H. Little, and as the name implies, sees the return of the masked murderer. So it's been 10 years since the events of the first two movies, so I guess stuff must have happened in between, right? Well, Laurie Strode had a daughter. Then she died along with the father, so little Jamie here is now Michael's only living relative. She is played by Daniela Harris. She was adopted by this family, but the parents are barely in the movie, so we primarily see her with Rachel, who is played by Ellie Cornell. And of course, Donald Pleasence returns as Sam Loomis, and this time Michael Myers is played by George P. Wilbur. The movie shows us that Michael has been comatose ever since his light singeing. And now they want to get rid of him, so they are sending him back to Smith's Grove. And of course, Loomis was not notified of this, therefore Michael was not restrained. I think they just got accustomed to him being comatose. One of them asks whether he has any living relatives, and of course they mention the niece Jamie, which wakes Michael up and off he goes doing what he does best. They do play it off by making conversation about potential legal guardians, but it still seems pretty forced bringing Jamie up at all. When Loomis hears of this, naturally no one listens to him when he says that he is going back to Haddonfield, so he sets off on his own once again. What I find funny about Michael Myers is that whenever he breaks out of somewhere, his first stop is getting a mechanic's overalls. Only this time, Loomis happens to be stopping to refuel. What a coincidence! This leads to Loomis begging Michael to leave the people of Haddonfield alone. But of course that yields no results, so gunshots and an explosion. Wait, why is Loomis jumping away from the explosion when we have clearly covered the fact that anyone caught in a fiery explosion of death will be more or less okay? Come on, movie, play by your own stupid rules. Jamie seems to be having a tough time as she is plagued by dreams about Michael, and on top of that she isn't having a great school life either.
How come your mom didn't make you a costume, Jamie? How could you? Your mommy's dead. Jamie's an orphan! Jamie's an orphan!
Okay, I know kids can be cruel, but my god, they are the real villains here. Jamie wants to go trick-or-treating, which means getting her a costume. And would you believe it, she picks out the exact same costume little Michael Myers was wearing all those years ago. Then she sees Michael as he grabs his traditional Star Trek mask, which just so happens to be in the store, a little insensitive, don't you think? But anyway, he takes a swing at her with a knife, only to disappear when everyone runs to her aid. They think nothing of it, thinking she was just seeing things. After all, she has been having a lot of nightmares lately. Since his car was destroyed, Loomis hitchhikes his way to Haddonfield and meets an old man, who claims to be hunting damnation.
Yes, we'll gather at the river, the beautiful, beautiful river. Gather with the saints at the river.
I don't know why we really needed him in this movie, he never appears again, but at least it is an entertaining, confusingly random encounter. While Rachel and Jamie are out trick-or-treating, we see Michael sneak into their house and look at some pictures. Makes sense, Michael has never seen Jamie before. He may be fire retardant, but he isn't psychic. the fact that Michael has to look at pictures of Jamie to know who she is tells us that the scene in the store was entirely in her imagination. Now, I don't know whether she was sleepwalking or letting her imagination run wild. The movie never actually clarifies this. Loomis goes to the police and meets the new sheriff, Sheriff Ben Meeker, played by Beau Starr. He explains the situation, and in fear of a repeat of 1978, he listens to Loomis and issues a curfew. Only this time, Loomis knows who to protect. They head straight to find Jamie and get her to safety. But Rachel loses sight of Jamie while she deals with the subplot of her boyfriend Brady cheating on her. And while I do like Rachel, because she seems like a nice enough character, I don't give a crap about her relationship with Brady. And given how quickly these scenes go by, I don't think anyone involved in the movie did either. Loomis and the sheriff are trying to find Jamie before Michael does, which means they went to Jamie's house, but find this instead.
This is starting to spook me, Doc.
Michael just doesn't like dogs, does he? Maybe he's a cat person. And apparently he isn't a big fan of light pollution either, as he throws some guy into the power station, knocking out all the power throughout Haddonfield. Rachel is reunited with Jamie, pretty damn quick too, a whole 6 minutes, and most of that was spent with other characters, so it makes you wonder what the point was really. Then Loomis and Meeker turn up and take them to the police station, only to find that Michael has massacred the place, which we never got to see. And I wouldn't normally care, because usually in horror movies less is more, but we've already seen Michael killing people in very well lit scenes, so budget restraints? Or filming difficulties? Oh no, I know, if we saw Michael killing a bunch of cops it would belittle the rest of the movie. Yeah, probably that one. Anyway, Loomis creates a lynch mob when the patrons of a local bar turn up after trying to get in touch with the police but failing to do so. Because it is hard to answer the phone when you have been horrifically and brutally murdered to death. So yes, they went to the police station to see what was what, and Loomis tells them all it was Michael Myers, whom they remember from 10 years ago. Thus, lynch mob, which results in one innocent death when they start jumping at shadows. Good work, Doctor. The police station is a no-go, so the sheriff takes Jamie to his home and tries to fortify it and hold out there until the state police arrive. He radioed them from his home when he got there. And their defences are pretty tight, except Michael is in there with them. You see, when they left Jamie's house, they left a deputy there to see if they returned home. And rather than killing said deputy, Michael hides in the back of his car until the sheriff calls the deputy to meet them at his house. So Michael got a rather convenient lift. And coincidence of coincidences, the girl Brady is screwing around with just so happens to be the sheriff's daughter, so now they are all together in the same house.
Have some coffee.
I love it when a broken relationship comes together. Little does Loomis know that Michael is in there with them, so he heads out to try and find him, starting at Jamie's house. Then the sheriff leaves when he hears that the lynch mob have accidentally murdered someone. And now Michael starts killing.
Wish they'd fix the power. At least we'd have some MTV while we wait for the cavalry.
Jesus, okay, right, we get it. Michael doesn't like MTV. Rachel notices the bodies and Brady tries to shoot through the locked door so they can escape.
Metal! God damn it, it's metal!
But no luck. I guess Brady forgot the basic premise of shoot and reload, so Michael kills him. In fairness, I think he would have died either way. Rachel and Jamie escape onto the roof, and for the most part, I like this scene. But I have to admit, Michael looks like a scarecrow in this shot. Rachel falls off the roof while Jamie makes it safely down to the ground. Then Michael apparently learns to teleport, as he was stood on the ground near them even though 20 seconds before that he was on the roof. To be fair, with how resilient Michael has become over the last two movies, it's not that big of a stretch to believe he just hopped down. As Jamie runs for her life, Rachel slowly recovers and Loomis grabs Jamie and claims they will be safe in the school. Yeah, very subtle, Loomis. I'm sure he didn't hear that. Oh, would you fucking believe it? He heard all of that. Wait, was Michael's mask blonde then? Like, really, really blonde? Yes, because when your victim is in a school, you cannot wear a mask with dark coloured hair. The basics. Rachel comes to her rescue, and then the lynch mob comes to their rescue. They decide that Myers is the state police's problem, even though they very much didn't think that earlier, but whatever. They drive out of town past the state police, who tell them to keep driving until they hit a highway patrol substation. But what gets me is they're firing shots off in the air as several police cars are coming towards them, and they don't give a crap. Is this some tradition I don't know about? On the way to the substation, Myers attacks. As it turns out, he was hanging on underneath the truck since the school. Either that or he used his super speed again. Once everyone else is dead, Rachel takes control of the truck and Michael loses his ability to easily grab someone in a driving seat. Main characters, you see, they have higher resistance to grabs. She manages to knock him off the truck, then she runs him over, and then the cavalry show up and finish him off. Well, for now anyway, you know how it goes. But then, shock of shocks, Jamie stabs her stepmother in a small recreation of the opening kill in the first movie. Halloween 4, The Return of Michael Myers. It was okay. The movie made serious strides to becoming a bit more Jason-like. What with kill scenes that would be right at home in the Friday the 13th series. And what I find funny is when it all started, Halloween was inspiring Friday. But by the time Michael returned for his third outing, Jason was on 6. So the fan base began to become much more familiar with Jason than Michael. So I think that filmmakers felt they had to push it more in that direction to stand a chance at competing. But enough of comparisons. While I did enjoy Halloween 4, I didn't like it as much as the original, which is no big shocker. But I liked it less than Halloween 2 as well, which is for a number of reasons. Firstly, one reason I liked the second was it continued on directly from the first, and when watched together you feel the strain it takes on Laurie and Dr. Loomis. And obviously being set 10 years later means it couldn't achieve that, but that isn't ultimately what makes it less enjoyable for me. It's the cinematography. It just isn't as good. Say what you want about the second movie, but it captured everything very well. With this one, it just feels bland and overexposed. Especially Michael's mask. We see too much of it. The great thing about a pure white mask is it works wonders in the dark, which the first two films understood. But there always seems to be too much light on Michael Myers in this movie. We see too much of him, which makes him less scary. And honestly, the Scarecrow scene didn't really help either. That's not to say every scene was like that. The petrol station scene was shot brilliantly, as was a few others. Obviously, John Carpenter's Halloween theme makes a return along with Michael Myers, and it still works great. The acting was pretty good. Daniela Harris as Jamie was quite impressive, and while I don't think George P. Wilbur did a terrible job as Michael Myers, he is my least favourite in the series so far, but that could be down purely to direction. I just didn't think Michael's movements were anywhere near as creepy as the prior movies. And as for Donald Pleasence, he did a good job, but I don't think his script was as good this time around, but he definitely killed it with his reaction to Jamie at the end of the movie.
No! 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 No!
That's the Loomis we all know and love, and that about wraps it up. Halloween 4 is not as good as the first two movies, but is still enjoyable, just in a more silly way. You have been watching Good or Bad, and I'll see you next time.